Comic 2 Slasher Review.
All right. Yeah. Candyman 1992 going up against A Nightmare on Elm Street 1984. Is anyone locked in yet? Because I honestly don't know what to do yet.
I'm locked in.
Help.
Candyman.
That doesn't help me. Is anyone else
I have the list if you want to know the rankings.
I am going to break into
Will
your
that
house.
help?
And Nicolas Cage, what was that movie? He was getting the map.
National Treasure.
National
Yeah, I'm going to
Treasure.
national treasure your list and burn it is what I'm going to do. All right. Put it in Nicolas Cage terms for you.
I mean, if it helps, Mikey, Candyman is number 6. Nightmare on Elm Street is number 54.
That makes me want to go
God
Nightmare
damn it.
more. I hope you know that.
He has to know that. This has to be the long game where he has regrets about putting Nightmare this low, so he's going to irritate you into voting for it.
And Cujo's number 90.
Stop telling me that.
I just like to annoy you with my list.
I know you do. Keep that list. Greg,
Mikey, what's your number 2 top film?
we're not talking about mine.
I know, but what's your number 2 top film?
As I said in a previous episode, my number 2 when we did our top 100 movie rankings for our 300th episode, my number 2 was A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Your number 3 was the original Nightmare. Your number 2 was Dream Warriors.
Dream Warriors. Right.
So
okay.
your number 3 is A Nightmare on Elm Street. Candyman was below that. Your decision for this should be simple.
But it's not, because like I said, I forget which episode it was during the tournament here. I feel like at least when I did mine, it was a heavier dose of personal bias in there than it is when we really sit down and strip all that away. You know, so it's not that they're right next to each other. Help me, somebody. Who's Greg? Are you locked in yet?
Does this help?
Hey, come on.
Good is better than fun.
Which one's fun? It's the original Nightmare, not Dream Warriors.
I'm just saying, good is greater than fun.
Doesn't help here.
Just like Rob is locked in on Candyman, I'm locked in on it's Nightmare. It's between these two, it's Nightmare. I mean, granted, I don't believe that Nightmare should be here, but because I would have this final should be The Thing versus Candyman, and then I'd have The Thing. But it's Nightmare. Killer's more iconic. The story is better. The acting. I'm gonna say that the acting is better. The final girl is better. The direction is better. I just personally believe.
Maybe.
I mean, even just the thought alone, right? If I'm dealing with both of these villains, I'd rather deal with Candyman than I'd rather deal with just on all those levels.
Would you though?
I disagree with pretty much everything he said. I think Candyman is better at everything that he said Nightmare is better at.
Not everything.
I mean, it's
You're
pretty
gonna-
much everything.
Rob, you're going to tell me that Helen is a better final girl than Nancy?
Yes.
Yes.
Serious?
Absolutely not.
No.
Yes.
No. Let's back this up. Because
Hold on.
Helen is one of my Helen is one of my favorite characters in a horror movie ever. We can't call her a final girl. We cannot. She doesn't survive and she fucks Tony Todd. That's not being a final girl.
That's
That's,
a
being
winner,
all
though.
of us on this show.
We'll call her the big winner then.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
well, that's fine because she is, and that's acceptable, but we can't call her a better final girl than Nancy.
Then that's fine. Then I guess you would say yes, Nancy is a better final girl, but she's not a better character.
Okay,
You can't
There's a
penalize
debate to be
Candyman for
had
telling
there.
a story that doesn't have a final girl.
there's a debate to be had there, but
I
I could not let that
Can't
one
imagine
go.
what that debate could possibly be.
Helen had a better performance, though, is the thing. Like the role of Helen was performed better than the role of Nancy.
No.
Definitely had a better performance.
I
Oh.
vehemently disagree with that statement. But
Really?
I think
How?
I just think that Helen goes looking for trouble. Nancy doesn't. Trouble finds her. And then dealing with the trouble that's presented to you, Helen gives in. Nancy fights back. And having to deal with a character, having to deal with a villain that will get you in your sleep, that all humans have to do, that's more terrifying. At least in my eyes, it's more terrifying to have to deal with something that you can't avoid. Helen could have avoided this by not going down the rabbit hole. Nancy, there's no way she could have avoided this because she has to sleep. So
yeah.
So that's why my vote locked in is a nightmare.
But we all have that fuck around and find out moment. We don't know we're gonna find out until we fuck around. You know, let's be honest. And how I think
you have a fuck around and find out thing. I don't. I'm crazy, not stupid. There's a difference.
Right. You fuck around a lot. It happens a lot. You just haven't run into Tony Todd in a coat yet, is the thing. She did.
There's also, you know, Tony Todd is Candyman is defeatable. Freddy's really not.
You've seen Freddy beaten.
I see Freddy get beat up by high school kids in every goddamn movie he's in.
Yeah, he does. No, he does get beat up, but in the long run, in the long game, Freddy still wins.
Yeah, but Candyman keeps coming back too. Look,
all
these villains keep coming back in the next movie. So with Freddy, you just grab him and bring him out in the real world, and then he's just a old ass pedophile.
And then you send him back to the dream world, and it starts all over again. You can't avoid him.
Right, but all the killers come back for the next movie. Like that's a ridiculous argument that you can kill one and you can't kill the other.
I mean, if we're going down the rabbit hole of other movies in the franchise, Tony Todd was defeated in 3 and didn't come back.
Well, they just didn't make another movie, which is
right. And the Candyman lore kept going, as we learned in the Nia DaCosta film. The lore just keeps going. Maybe Tony Todd's version of Candyman doesn't come back, but Candyman always comes back.
That's not Daniel Robitaille Candyman. That's a different Candyman.
But it's still Candyman.
But it's a different version of Candyman. Freddy stayed the same throughout the entire franchise.
No, because he turned into a hairless cat that one movie.
Different timelines. No.
Oh, but okay. I feel like we're missing, honestly, where I'm trying to narrow this down in certain areas, and the toughest part I'm having is, and this helped Nightmare with going up against Saw, and I feel it helped with Candyman going up against Texas Chainsaw, is the villains. Candyman and Freddy are both performed masterfully. Like Robert Englund, Tony Todd, there's no give there, which makes this even harder. This is like, this matchup is one of the most difficult yet because of how similar these movies are, and different, but they're similar in a lot of ways.
I'd rather fuck Tony Todd.
I don't know. Robert Englund, handsome man. Oh, come on now. Let's not act like
Tony Todd.
Tony Todd aged better. I'll admit that. But in his time, Robert Englund though. God damn, I don't know what to do here, man. The thing with the villain for me is, and I need help figuring it out. In this movie, in the original movies, Tony Todd did more, is the problem. But we know what Freddy turned into, and then Robert Englund, I feel, surpassed that with Freddy Krueger. But we're not talking about none of that shit matters. God damn, man. This is fucking... And the stories are dope, too, for both of them. Okay, so hold on. We have... Rob and Greg are the only ones locked in. Amber, are you locked in yet?
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Honestly,
this is hard.
because Candyman has more of a lore to me, because it when you look at the story as a whole and you see what Tony Todd, what Candyman went through because of his love for a person that he never got over. And these people basically tortured him. They turned bees onto him, you know, and this was a person that was well educated and well endowed for his time period, which I'm not saying well endowed is a dick.
Yeah, but we know he was too.
Hold on, Amber. I got you. Don't worry about it.
Huge clown penis.
There you go.
But seriously, you know, overall for the story and the lore that they gave Candyman, it appeals to me a little bit more because it's like, yeah, I get it with Freddy. He's so iconic. He's great. I have no quibbles with him. But it's like, if I really had to nitpick, one was a pedophile that got busted. The other one,
well, hey now,
a man that fell in love.
In the remake, he was a pedophile. In the remake.
No.
Yes.
It's heavily implied throughout the film. We all know that.
All you want to.
It's not what happened.
Why in the hell would these parents, not anybody particular, but parents, want to burn this man alive?
I mean, listen.
I would burn somebody alive if you molested my son.
I would burn somebody alive if they killed my kid. I would either want to or I would actually kill them if they even if they killed my kid. So the argument there is still, and they got their street justice and ended up paying for it.
But again, you're looking at a man who fell in love with a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And they persecuted him for it. They destroyed him for whom he loved. And to me, that lore kind of pulls me towards it better than a pedophile getting street justice.
I mean, if you just wear an entire suit made out of rubber, the bees will have no effect because bee sting can't get through rubber.
Well, you know what?
Shout out to bsource.com. Yeah, we know that.
So in real life. So hey, it is what it is. But yeah, I'm set on Candyman.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference between these two movies in my mind, and the reason it was such an easy choice, is the sort of the just social weight that Candyman carries, where there's none of that with Elm Street. Like, it's not, and I get it, it's not that kind of movie, and it's not trying to make that kind of point, but Candyman to me gets extra credit for making that point and going that extra step to try and do that. I just, to me, Candyman's also a movie that sticks with me longer after I watch it than Nightmare does.
Exactly. And plus, honestly, that whole mannequin through the damn door just,
oh God, looks terrible.
I can't with it.
Kat, are you locked into, you were going Nightmare, right?
Oh, I'm locked into Nightmare.
Okay.
I think that if we're talking just, I'm on the losing side again, it seems like.
I don't know.
And I feel like my argument is very much the same. But if we're talking just stories, Candyman is a lot more ambitious. It tries a lot more things. I think it gets a lot of credit for that. It has very sympathetic, very interesting, deep characters. If we're talking films, I think Nightmare on Elm Street is better. It has better cinematography. I think maybe not cinematography, but it has better like framing of shots. I think it does so many really inventive things. I think the effects have held up really well. The performances, I like the characters. And while I like Helen as a character, I think she's very interesting. I think I can kind of relate to some of her insecurities and her feelings. As on a storytelling level, she really has it. As far as things that I want to see in a horror movie, like in terms of things that scare me, Nancy is someone that I can relate to a lot better. That whole, and I really like her as a final girl. I really like her as sort of a foil to Freddy, where nobody believes her, but she knows what she's seeing, and we have just this sort of like underdog story. I know that Freddy gets very easy to defeat as the franchise goes on. She's not the only teenager that can defeat him, but in the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie, it just, those odds feel so insurmountable, and Nancy just gets shit done, like that's an energy that I love so much. And even though I relate to Helen as a character, she doesn't have that, and that sort of succumbing to fear, and not to fear, the sort of succumbing to the end, I guess, to everything that Candyman represents. It's not as scary to me. It's just not.
I mean, I would say with regards to Helen, I mean, you say Nancy, nobody believes her, but she knows what she saw. I mean, Helen ends up locked up in the nut house because nobody believes her.
Well,
They both had
nobody
that
does believe
aspect,
her, and she
yeah.
succumbs to it. Like, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, because I think that's not as scary for me. You know, I think the facing the fear head on and like challenging it and like learning new skills to attack Freddy is a lot. That's a situation that just I find more intimidating and impressive.
I understand that, but I think coming up against the fear that is too powerful for you to feel like you can stand up against it is much scarier to me than one that I feel like I can take a stand against. You know what I mean? Like having
I don't think it
looking at my situation and going, there's nothing I can do here but give myself over to this is much more frightening to me than, you know, I'm going to set up a bunch of Home Alone traps around the house and try and hit him in the nuts with a sledgehammer or whatever the fuck she did.
I can see how it would be, but also when that fear is being an eternal vengeance demon and the love of Tony Todd, like that just it's not scary to me. That's not where the fear in the movie comes from for me. And the fear that is there and I think that's what it comes down to is because and we've had this conversation in the bracket before. I don't think everyone goes into a horror movie necessarily to be scared. I don't think a movie has to be really scary to necessarily be a horror movie, but I go into horror movies to be scared. It's the deciding factor for me, and Nightmare on Elm Street just I think is a lot scarier. It's a huge advantage in that film's favor because while Candyman is a very good story, it's not that scary to me in the same way, like in a lingering way.
I can respect what you're saying about that, Cat, but the biggest thing with me when it comes to Helen, I don't feel like she gave up or she succumbed. She just had one of them fuck it moments where there's really nothing I can do. So I'm just gonna, go with what I have to do. She had a husband that was cheating on her. She also got thrown in a mental institution, and Nancy, she read some survivor books. Nancy is a great final girl. But when it comes to Helen, I feel like she's a better woman when it comes to the horror aspect of it because she's put in situations that, and I hate kind of putting it this way, but from where she lived and then going to a place like Cabrini Green, that's scary within itself right there for someone like her and what she's used to in her accustomed type of life. And she's going to these projects out on her own.
That's what goes to what I was saying earlier a little bit. There was that layer of fear with that alone, like instilled in the movie, like embedded is probably a better word.
And, even though it was so scary and so different for her, she still faced it and went through it and wasn't afraid to talk to people about it.
I don't know. Maybe it's just admiration for Nancy because I feel, I don't know. I feel like I'm more of a Helen than a Nancy. Like I've had those just fuck it moments also.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like I would get myself in a situation like Helen, I'm a fuck around and find out kind of person.
Yeah.
And then also just like a fuck it person. So I get it. Like I think she's very relatable, but I just
and I
don't know.
totally respect that about Nancy because she did really have to work to figure out because she was on her own as well. Nobody believed her.
Nancy did have a little more help but that's the thing. Will, what are you thinking? Are you locked in?
I'm not because I'm struggling over here.
Dude, me too.
I've been fighting this for a little bit. I mean, both these movies have like a very special place in my heart. Like, Candyman is a very well told story, has a great villain. sympathetic villain, yes, he's better than Freddy, but like as a villain, Freddy is such a better villain. Uh, uh, like Candyman, he goes after you unless you're his object of obsession. Yeah, that word or that phrase.
DVD stuff.
If you're not his object of obsession, he'll just kill you and be done with you. Like one stab, you're gone. Freddy, he torments and tortures people equally. Like you could see throughout the entire movie, like everybody was distraught by this one guy in their dreams. Like he's been torturing these kids for weeks, and he eventually does kill them. But just the mental torture this guy can put on these characters. It's and this is like one of the only movies that can actually scare me. Like it's the only horror movie that I can think of that actually scared me, except like Jaws or something like that, because the water is like terrifying. But Nightmare has better music, in my opinion. Also Nancy, like she doesn't get enough credit. Like she's a terrific final girl. Like people say, like who's better, Lori or Nancy? I would always lean towards Nancy because of what she had to deal with throughout the entire movie. But yeah,
Sounds like you're leaning.
I am leaning Nightmare, but I don't want to lean Nightmare because Candyman is such a well put together story.
Chris, are you locked in?
This was coming up as like a 50-50 for me. Like,
yeah,
Candyman is a much better story, better shot, but Nightmare definitely is just more unabashed with its villain. There's no redeeming factor. The effects were better.
Would you say the effects were better for Candyman?
Nightmare.
Okay, that's tough for me.
But I think I'm going to lean a little more towards Candyman in this fight.
Fuck.
I mean, if it helps, Nancy didn't kill a dog.
Yeah, but she had to.
She did.
Yeah,
She didn't
if
have
a dog was going to kill me, I mean, yeah, I would break my heart and soul to do it, but I'm not going to let anything kill me. You know,
She ended up letting Candyman kill her anyway. So what's the
she had
difference?
no. He was. That's the other part too. And Chris, Will was talking about a little bit. Freddy tortures you, and that's always been an underrated thing for Freddy for me. He will torture you and just ruin you.
Okay,
until
don't you think that whenever
Right.
you're in a parking garage and all of a sudden you hear somebody in a deep voice say, "Be my victim," and you're like the only one there, you don't think that's going to be scary too?
Well, but that's what I'm saying.
No, I'm gonna be into it.
Well, not so much
It's gonna be
that.
That's
Tony
the thing, though.
Todd.
This idea that Freddy tortures people and Candyman doesn't,
Right.
I don't buy into because
Yeah.
he completely tore this woman's life apart.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Completely.
One person.
That's what I was gonna-
Tortured four.
That's what I was going to get to.
Yeah, but that's 4 teenagers. That's only one adult.
That's true. But I was. That's
I could torture my teenager right now by turning off the Wi-Fi. Are you kidding me?
Okay, but if you stop and think about it, he actually only tortured a couple of them. Johnny Depp, he didn't torture. Johnny Depp wasn't all about, oh, my dream's this, my dream's that. He just got slashed up in a water bag.
Well, it was heavily implied though.
We're going down the kills. If we're going down the kills road,
I'm not going
that
down
the
the
kills in
kills
Nightmare are
road,
better than the kills in
but I'm
Candyman.
just saying,
That's fair
he
point.
took a woman that had everything going for her. She was a journalist. She had everything going for her, and he basically just picked apart everything in her life and drove her batshit crazy because it put her in a mental institution.
And that's what I was getting to. That that was a very strong point of Freddy to me, because his kills are always great. Like that's what he's a top slasher mostly for that reason. But the underrated aspect was him torturing people, and Candyman has that too. These movies are so well matched. It's crazy that they ended up meeting.
You're not gonna get an argument from me there.
Are you locked into Nightmare, Will?
I mean, I want to reiterate what I was saying before. Like, yes, it's not really shown that Johnny Depp and the Rod dude was like, tortured by Freddy, but it was like really, really implied because like when Nancy or Tina was like suggesting this guy in a hat and is all burnt up, like he's
They
like,
knew.
what the fuck, y'all too? And, like it's very implied that these girls were tortured, and if you're not Candyman's victim, you don't have to. You can just you're guaranteed a fast death. Like you're not going to be tortured. He's going to kill you and be over with it, unless you're what's her name, Helen. Other than that, the concept, both concepts, like they're equally scary, but like I think that Nightmare also has a far better concept than most slashers and even Candyman as well. So I'm going to give the win or my vote to Nightmare.
You motherfuckers are going to make me decide this. I hate all of you, every one of you.
And Will is dropping in those rankings fast. Think you disagreeable motherfucker.
If I call him a diddler, will I go back up a little bit?
No, it just means you vote for a diddler.
Damn.
Come on.
Damn it. Fuck.
He spun that on his back.
Damn it.
He got you there. Holy shit. All right. Okay. Last chance for any type of mind swaying, because honestly, I'm leaning Candyman and I don't know what to do. Nightmare on Elm Street has, up until the last 3 years, has always been hands down my favorite franchise, but that's franchise. That's me being able to see what Freddy has turned into. And I like different iterations of Freddy throughout this franchise better than this one. But this one's so dark and it's so good. But again, they goes back to the Texas Chainsaw argument. That Candyman did more than Texas Chainsaw as far as depth in the characters, and it's less so here. But I think that point might go to Candyman too. It's just isolated to one victim, as to where Freddy, they're showing different shots of different. One last chance to sway, but I'm letting you guys know I'm leaning Candyman.
Mikey hates Robert Englund, confirmed.
That's not true. His publicist tells me no very nicely quite often. That's not true.
And the list of people that Cat hates has grown from just John Carpenter now, John Carpenter and Tony Todd.
Anyone can hate Tony Todd.
It's impossible.
Now we know Rob is just being silly.
I hate his basketball choices. The man's a Laker fan, but that's a whole nother issue. Honestly, I feel this is such an even matchup, but I truly feel that Candyman edges it out slightly in so many categories. And the big part of it, Chris, you were talking about a little bit, but honestly, I think Candyman's effects were better. And I say that because they weren't as ambitious with what, as far as effects, with what they were doing in Candyman as they were in Nightmare, obviously. But that leaves the window open for your effects to not really measure up throughout. And there was a handful of spots in Nightmare on Elm Street where we can point out where the effects didn't look great. But there's also a handful of shots where we can say that looked fucking amazing. But Candyman, I don't remember, and it hasn't been too long since I watched this movie, but I don't think there was anything that looked bad. And they had some shit they were doing in there too, man. Dragging people with nothing, and the blood smeared, and oh man, I think Candyman edges it out slightly in just about every category. And I think with that, the winner of Murder Madness for 2024 is Candyman.
Congratulations to Candyman winning this year's Vernal Lord Humphrey Cup.
And where are my balls?
It's not the Lord Humphrey Cup.
Start the fanfare, drop the confetti, sing the song that they sing, whatever that is. I can't remember the name of it. And that is great.
God damn it, man. I'm
still not sure.
Well, it's too late.
We have a champion.
How am I putting things ahead of Nightmare on Elm? This show is fucked up.
I don't think you like Nightmare on Elm Street anymore.
I love Nightmare on Elm Street.
I don't think you do.
Look, I didn't vote for it either, and I'm the only one of us that has a Freddy tattoo.
You need to stop. Oh, man. that was by far the hardest one. Yeah, the whole
Yeah.
tournament, that finals was very difficult, so well matched up.
It was very easy for me.
I don't know how.
Looking at the 4 movies coming into tonight, I was convinced that Nightmare was going to win and that Candyman should win. I'm very happy that we did the right thing tonight. Because when I looked at the 4 movies, I went clearly Candyman is head and shoulders above all these others.
Yeah, I don't feel good about
Rob, I'm gonna have to fight you.
Well, Mikey, if it helps you, you only have 11 months till the next one, where it'll be the
Oh,
horror
yeah.
porn parodies face off.
Write that
Paranormal
idea down.
Paranormal Activity got to win. Goddammit.
If Nightmare had a better ending, I think it would have won. But Nightmare's ending is so confusing and so like weird.
Because they left it open and it feels on purpose. That's the thing. Even though Helen gave in, dude, that ending was so deep, and the conflict that she had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a really good moment. And like even at the end, Nightmare really didn't have that. Like they just like set Freddy on fire and so, you know, whatever happened. And it felt, I don't know. I'm not gonna rehash the ending of the movie, but dude, I feel like these movies are neck and neck, and there's just like a couple of percentage in each category that goes to Candyman. I wasn't gonna feel good about this one either way.
Well, you can also look at it at the perspective of how Helen kind of transformed from a villain in the movie to validation, basically.
But it's in the books. Candyman officially the winner of 2024's Murder Madness tournament.
And the Lord Humphrey Cup.
Okay.